All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most important geopolitical stories of this century, that really complex stance between the United States and China during the Obama years. This is the big question, right? It's defined history for centuries. And believe me, from 2009 to 2017, no relationship on the planet tested this question more than the one between an established US and a rising China. And when I say rising, I mean rapidly rising. So what we're going to do is trace that story. And what's so fascinating is that you can tell almost the entire story just by listening to the words. The words used by presidents, by secretaries of state, by top advisors. It's a peek behind the curtain at how a superpower tries to adapt when a new giant steps onto the world stage. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so to really get why the language shifted so much, you first have to understand the world they were living in. The scale of change happening at the time was, well, it was massive. The ground was literally shifting under everyone's feet. Just look at that number. Seriously, from $1.4 trillion to $8.5 trillion. That's how much China's economy grew in just one decade. And this wasn't just numbers on a spreadsheet, right? This economic explosion was directly turning into real-world power. New military muscle, more political clout. It was a whole new reality, and there was no way Washington could ignore it. Let's rewind to 2009. President Obama walks into the Oval Office, and the entire global economy is on fire from the 2008 financial crash. So in that kind of crisis, you're not looking for a fight. You're looking for help. And the administration's first move toward China was all about cooperation. And this quote right here from Obama looking back on that time, it just nails the thinking back then. The first big US-China dialogue in 2009 was built around this idea. Let's welcome China, let's treat them like a responsible stakeholder in the system. Yeah, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton had this great phrase for it, a multi-partner world. The thinking, and it made a lot of sense at the time, was that you just couldn't solve the world's biggest problems, the economy, climate change, unless the two biggest players were working on the same team. But that whole partnership thing, it wasn't the only thing happening. By 2011, after a couple years of this cooperative vibe, you start to hear a different tune coming out of Washington. And it was all wrapped up in one of the administration's most famous foreign policy moves. So the pivot to Asia, you've probably heard of it, but what was it really? Well, they later preferred to call it a rebalance, and that's probably a better word. It's interesting because it wasn't just about zeroing in on China, it was about re-engaging with that entire massive region. And if you look at the strategy here, you can see how broad it was. I mean, sure, military presence is on the list, but look at all this other stuff. Trade, diplomacy, strengthening ties with old allies like Japan and South Korea. It was this really complex move to both work with China while also making it crystal clear that the US was a Pacific power and wasn't going anywhere. Okay, so this timeline gives us a nice bird's eye view of the key moments. And you can see that the next big thing that really shook things up wasn't a US policy. It was a new face in Beijing. Right, so in 2013, Xi Jinping takes the reins in China, and it becomes pretty clear pretty fast that this is a whole new ballgame. He had a much more assertive, nationalistic vision for China's place in the world, and that meant the US had to rethink its playbook again. So what did they do? Well, it turned into this really delicate balancing act. On one side, you had officials like Vice President Biden talking up his personal friendship with Xi, really trying to build that personal connection, keep the lines of communication open. And then, on the other side, you had President Obama saying things like this. Publicly, he's saying, hey, we're not trying to hold you back, but you've got to play by the rules. So you see what's happening? The message is getting complicated. It's like a friendly handshake and a pointed finger at the exact same time. Now let's flash forward to 2015. Xi Jinping is in the US for a state visit, and this whole two-sided approach is just out there for everyone to see. And what's wild is that you had different parts of the US government saying completely different things, practically in the same breath. I mean, look at this. This chart just lays it all bare. You've got the Treasury Department saying, hey, great job on the economy, while the White House is raising alarms about them building military bases on artificial islands. The State Department is talking close ties, while the Pentagon is sailing warships right through the South China Sea. It's like the government was having an argument with itself out loud. So let's just rewind for a second. Remember 2009? This was the vibe. Multi-partner world. It was all about hope, cooperation, fresh thinking. And then, bam, 6 years later, we are not allies. Think about that shift from partner to not allies. It's not quite enemy, but it is a universe away from where they started. That one carefully chosen phrase. It kind of says it all, doesn't it? Okay, so after all that, what's the big takeaway? What did this whole 8-year saga of shifting words and policies actually leave behind for the next administration? And for all of us? This really sums up the whole arc, doesn't it? It started with an open invitation. Then it moved to this strategic rebalancing act. Then it had to adapt to a much more forceful China under Xi. And it ended up in this messy place of sometimes cooperating and sometimes confronting. It was a very deliberate but very difficult navigation of a totally new world. And that leaves us with the big question, the one that policymakers and historians are still arguing about today. Was this whole balancing act a brilliant piece of diplomatic strategy, a masterful tightrope walk, or was it a huge missed opportunity to get tough and draw a line in the sand sooner? The Obama administration's approach set the stage for everything that's come since, and that one question, well, it's still hanging in the air.